Why are organizations still buried in bad data? Hi, I'm Isaac Sacolick. I'm the author of Driving Digital, where I shared some of my best practices on forming a data-driven organization. And then I followed it up with Digital Trailblazer. And in chapter 7, I tell my stories around buried in bad data and my triumphs of creating citizen data science programs. Welcome to the Driving Digital Stand-Up, and this is our author interview series, and I look forward to sharing with you some of the secrets behind the chapter, Buried in Bad Data.
Ginny, it's great to see you. For anyone who doesn't know Ginny yet, Ginny Hamilton is a CIO community manager and the editor of Digital Trailblazer, among many other things that we've been working on together. Ginny, thanks for joining me again today.
Thanks for having me, Isaac. I know this book in and out. Chapter 7 is the data chapter. And I want to talk about how you chose to open this chapter because I found it really interesting that with all the data ops technology out there and machine learning capabilities available for data leaders these days, that you chose to open this chapter about the problems that every business faces by relying on too many spreadsheets.
Yeah, that's right.
So, you've been writing and speaking about these challenges for years. Why is it so hard and taking so long for organizations to modernize and transform their data management practices? Why is it?
Yeah, I've been tackling this challenge for almost a decade now, and I never thought I would step into this, but I would bring it up at conferences and I'd write it on my blog and I'd get this huge reaction because everybody is struggling with it. And when you really unpack it and look at why, spreadsheets is the Swiss Army knife for every business user to work with data. It's what we all learned, right? You're not doing data in Microsoft Word, you're not doing data in PowerPoint, you're doing it in Excel. Today, you're doing it in Google Sheets. We all know as data scientists, as technologists, we learn a set of tools and takes us a while to learn them, but the ones that we really like, we continue working with them, right? And we get better at them. We learn how to work through their intricacies. And now you go back to a business person who's been doing spreadsheets for 5 to 10 to 20 years and say to them, let's go look at another tool. And they're like, well, why am I going to do that? I could do it just fine in a spreadsheet. So first thing is organizations, people have to overcome that. I have a skill set here. Maybe I should be looking at other tools. Even for businesses, you understand why businesses ended up with so many spreadsheets is we didn't really create regimented, well-defined business rules. We didn't have cleansed data, right? And so inside a spreadsheet, you can do a lot of things that in a very ungoverned way, right? I can change my formulas. I don't have to go through a change process.
Right.
I can cut and paste columns. I can go edit data directly, right? That's the kind of messy stuff that as technologists and data specialists, as security, we look at that and say, oh, we need to get into something that's a little bit more structured. But that's exactly what spreadsheets are really good at, is taking a small or relatively small data set and putting the controls in place, the tools in place for you to deal with messy data, messy rules, and come out with an end product relatively quickly. So that's what we need to get through.
Got it. So then what do you say to organizations that think that they can only be successful with data if they hire data scientists or engineering talent or people who already know how to use these new tools? And is there still a role for spreadsheets?
Well, yeah, so a few different questions there, Ginny, but yes, data scientists, engineers, I want them really working on my most strategic problems. In the case of data and analytics, my most strategic data and analytics problems. I want them doing machine learning models and analytic models, and so whether I have one data scientist or 1,000 of them, that's the places I'm going to have them work. When I think about spreadsheets and how to really address the problem of repeatability, right? I go out and do a spreadsheet every single week and put out a report around that. I have to do a lot of manual work to that. That's a repeatability problem. The transparency problem, you don't get to see the formulas that I put into my spreadsheet. You don't know how anything is calculated. You don't know whether I made some mistakes last month that are giving erroneous results. So it's not truly transparent and it's manual from that perspective. Those are the problems I'm trying to solve for with spreadsheets. And so spreadsheets are really good for one-time analysis. They're really good at looking at new data sets. But once something becomes operational, my objective as a CIO, as a chief data officer, is to put tools that open data sets to become more transparent, to be able to have more people in the organization ask questions. And that's really the area of citizen data scientists. It doesn't mean they're going to go do Python programming, although some of them can, or that they're going to go do TensorFlow. Very unlikely they're going to do deep learning experiments, but they're going to go do Power BI, or they're going to go do Tableau. They're going to be able to be creating a data product out of internal data so that their department and their team can actually become data driven and say, I want to learn something about a customer. I want to learn something about profitability, or what part of our operation I can become more efficient. And I tell some of those stories in Digital Trailblazer, but every company is facing these challenges.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you don't have to have data scientists to be successful with data. It's nice. And when you do have them, put them on the hard problems, but don't feel like you can't do hard things with data if you don't have those people seated in your organization. Okay. So you've accomplished a lot in data. I know this from working with you, that you've developed products, that you've pioneered citizen data science programs, that you've helped businesses automate their data integrations. So let's talk secret sauce. What one secret can you share with everyone on transforming with data? Because as you know, many leaders still struggle with data security and compliance gaps. So what's a secret, Isaac, that you can share with everyone on transforming with data?
Yeah, very simply, Jenny, there's a lot of tools and practices and, quite frankly, jargon when it comes to working with data and analytics and machine learning, all the libraries and all the tools underneath that. And what that's done is it's created different responsibilities, different job functions, and different focus areas. So I'll walk into an organization and there'll be the data governance group, and they'll have focus on creating data catalogs and creating compliance functions. And I'll talk to the data security group, and they'll be protecting data. And I'll talk about to the data ops group, they're going to be trying to automate things. And then somewhere out there, there's a citizen data science group creating Power BI. And then there's a small group creating analytics and machine learning algorithms.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, many
groups. And they're not talking to each other.
Okay.
And that's the punchline. They're not really talking to each other. They're not bringing their skills together into an area and saying, we're going to collectively go solve a problem that's secure, that's compliant, that's automated, that has good data quality, that is putting out products for our business to go use. And when you bring all 5 of those groups together, you start thinking about how do we use Agile to be able to iterate on our product, to iterate on what we're developing. And we think about how do we do this in a way where we create a center of excellence, where multiple teams are learning from each other, focused on different areas or different problem sets or different functions of the business. And they're learning to do the entire spectrum of data responsibilities in a concentrated, orchestrated way. And that's the secret sauce to this.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the secret is really something that is pretty basic, but something a lot of organizations, for whatever reason, fail at, which is communication and collaboration. Is that a good summary?
Communication, collaboration, and focusing on what the problem is, right? Here's the vision. We want to go do a customer 360 program. We want to go do analysis of which construction projects are most profitable. I mean, these are the kind of big, bolder questions organizations need to answer. And you're not going to have 5 different groups trying to solve different parts of it without collaborating.
So communication, collaboration, and focusing on the problem. Love it, Isaac. All good stuff. A lot more good stuff in chapter 7, the data chapter. And with that, I will toss it back to you.
Thanks, Ginny. Love talking to you about data. And I have a bunch of my mistakes and issues and lessons learned in chapter 7 around data. But quite frankly, if you haven't gotten to chapters 8, 9, and 10, those are my leadership chapters. We're going to be talking about that in chapter 8. My discussion about forming your leadership team around the importance of diversity and inclusion and really having a real collaborative team structure. So I can't wait to have this conversation with you about all the edits that we did on that particular chapter to hopefully get it right. So thanks for joining us on Chapter 7, Buried in Bad Data, and we look forward to having you join us in the Chapter 8 episode.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Digital Trailblazer author interview series. Please sign up for my YouTube channel and subscribe. That's the Driving Digital Stand-Up. And if you buy the book, Digital Trailblazer, you'll learn how to get access to the Digital Trailblazer community, where I have tons of more content and videos to accelerate your learning around digital transformation. Thank you and have a great day.